get right to the site. Welcoming big game Dennis Dodd and the host of the Late Kick, Josh Pate. And look, wherever you two go, chaos ensues. And what do we get? We got chaos there in Knoxville at Neyland Stadium. And Dennis, incredible job by you not getting swallowed up by the thousands of fans on the field. Great job with your interview with Jalin Hyatt, who was an absolute star in this game.
Yeah, that was my biggest contribution to the effort tonight, not getting swallowed up by 102,000 of my closest friends and sticking a microphone in front of Jalin Hyatt. But it may have been the best game I've ever seen, and that says a lot for a lot of people. What was at stake? The longing here, Josh, of 15 years. The cigar smoke, I think that it's still hovering in the air afterwards. And then just the tremendous effort by Hendon Hooker, Jalin Hyatt, Chase McGrath, all transfers, a symbol of what the college game is today.
If you could picture emotions being held back by a dam for about a decade and a half, and then all of a sudden just an explosive going off, that was that field goal. And really that entire fourth quarter was back and forth, nip and tuck. It looked like momentum swung half a dozen times. When that field goal gets hit and this place comes unglued and there's a realization that we actually just did it. We just beat Alabama for about the next hour and a half. It's kind of like a fever dream around here. You're out there getting interviews with all kinds of players. I'm tracking the goalpost, which made its way out of the tunnel that we're standing next to, Akeem. I don't know actually where that poor goalpost ended up, but it was a fascinating scene. And here's what stood out to me. There were 60-year-old people on this field. There were 16-year-old people on this field. And the exuberance was equal, face to face.
Let me just add, as that field goal went through, almost for a half a beat, the crowd didn't react. Right. It was like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
15 years are over. And Chase McGrath, the kicker, it may or may not have been tipped. I looked on my phone because I taped it a million times. And Byron Young, who's the star defensive lineman for Alabama, had the best shot. He was in Chase McGrath's face. He may have tipped it, but when he looked over his shoulder, and I slowed it down, he looked at the goalpost, looked back, put two hands to his head as if he couldn't believe it, and then went to one knee, and that's when the crowd came. I don't know if he cried or what, but it was amazing.
Yeah, you're right. It almost got blocked, and also McGrath sort of stutter stepped before that kick, and I was like, oh, no. You don't want to see a stutter step from a kicker in college. But the kid wearing number 40 knocked a 40-yarder for the win. So how about that? But also the fact that that's why we love college football, Josh. I mean, this is a game right here. Put this in the archives, because when you watch a game like this and see the reigning Heisman Trophy winner battle the Heisman candidate in Hendon Hooker, and you see a kid catch 5 touchdowns, and you see a team win in a series for the first time since 2006, this has been almost 2 decades of pressure being lifted in that stadium. What does this win mean for this program? Josh Heupel is building something really, really awesome there in Knoxville.
It's one of the most consequential wins we've seen in the history of college football. Because when you think of the magnitude of these programs, you think of the magnitude of what this rivalry once meant. The only reason we were ever speaking about it in the past tense is because they couldn't do this. And for so long, Bama sits on the mountaintop, and they're just looking down saying, you guys ever going to join us again? And the answer was, nope, nope, nope. And then all of a sudden, here's Josh Heupel in year 2, after so many failed experiments to varying degrees. Josh Heupel in year 2 is at his press conference afterwards saying, hey, we've kind of only just begun here. We've kind of only just cranked up the recruiting machine. We've still got a little ways to go. Yeah, we happen to beat Alabama tonight. But Hakeem, I'm telling you, man, if you could have been here, and you didn't really need to be here watching it at home, but if you could have been here, I don't know what Tennessee will do the rest of the year. They could go and win the SEC championship. They could win the playoff. They could win the national championship. The consequences on those games may be bigger holistically. You will never get a scene, and you will never get emotion like you got here tonight. I don't care what they do the rest of the year.
Think about this. There was a tweet from Lane Kiffin right before the kick where he was the closest coach maybe to beating Alabama in these 15 years, that block kick when he was here. And he simply tweeted, don't miss it. And so he was rooting for Tennessee in his 1 year at Tennessee. So, no, Alabama's not out of it. Tennessee's got a lot of work to do. This is a statement for Tennessee. I don't know if this is a statement for college football, because Tennessee has to take care of business. They have to go to Georgia November 5th. They have to win the rest of their games. But with this group, and they were depleted in the secondary.
Right.
They were playing at least one walk-on in the secondary. McCullough was out. He was suspended. And they just held on. I asked Josh Heupel after the game, just talk about the hang-on factor for you and the coaches with your head spinning. And he said, that's what we did. We just hung on. And he had 3 points better tonight.
And Hakeem, the other thing that I don't want to get lost here, this is a huge, monumental, program-altering win for Tennessee. Bryce Young was the focus in the pregame. Bryce Young played a phenomenal game.
He was great.
He threw the ball 52 times tonight. I mean, Bryce Young is just carrying that team on his shoulders. Who would have thought hanging 49 is not going to be enough? And it's just a shame that performance. You're looking at it here, 35 of 52, throws for 455. It gets lost because the other guy and the other team was better. But like you said, Tennessee's in the middle of this thing now. Alabama's still there. Georgia's still there. There are all sorts of fun and interesting scenarios that we can throw around this week.
There was a moment on Alabama's last drive where Bryce Young had Jahmyr Gibbs over the middle and just led him a bit too much.
Right.
It could have been a drop. I don't know. It could have been too far. But if he catches that, then Alabama's lining up for the game-winning field goal. That's how close they were. Just to give an example how great Bryce Young was tonight. By the way, he's back. If anybody's worrying about the shoulder, he's back.
Yeah, the 49 points, the most points Alabama's ever scored in a loss. So that tells you sort of what happened in this game. Also what happened in this game, Dennis, and you talked about this before we went on, the 17 penalties. That's a school record. Nick Saban is none too pleased about that. They got to clean that up rest of way here.
They came into the game, Hakeem, fourth worst in the country in penalty yards per game at 72. At the end of the first quarter, they had 57. And it kind of had that look like the stadium was rattling. The stadium was alive. It was a living being tonight. There was, I can remember about 4 illegal procedure calls. Obviously, the pass interferences were big. But it was a very undisciplined group. And I had my questions about this secondary all year, Alabama. Even though they had a big interception tonight, overall they were not good, and that's got to drive Nick Saban crazy because that's his position. I mean, he looks over – that's the position he scrutinizes the most, no matter what, because he played that at Kent. So they got a lot of work to do at Alabama.
I think that in all of our time on the road, I've never experienced an environment like we saw here today, bleeding into tonight at Neyland Stadium. It was borderline impossible to function at times, but having said that, this is not the first time we've seen that from them. They struggled with penalties on the road at Texas. They've struggled with penalties in other weeks this year. This place just sunk its teeth into them tonight, and it wouldn't let go. 17 penalties is a stat I guarantee you Bama fans remember clear as day a decade from now when you mention this game.
Providing some perspective here, Dennis, as well, is the fact that even though Alabama lost this game, they still control their quote-unquote destiny here because they got a game against Ole Miss coming up on the schedule. And you said, of course, Tennessee's got to go and take care of business because certainly this win means a lot, beating Nick Saban for the first time. But they also have Kentucky and they've got Georgia on the schedule. So we could see these two teams meeting up in the SEC championship, and that'd be something special. But in terms of right now, Alabama still controls its own destiny even after this loss, Dennis.
Yeah, I expect them to get there, but I think what's going to be damn entertaining is Tennessee and Alabama, getting to that point and fulfilling their destiny are going to win shootouts. They're going to have to win that way. Tennessee's defensive backfield isn't good. I think each team had a sack tonight. Can you remember? I think that was it.
Yeah.
All those passes. Nobody and special shout out to defensive coordinator at Tennessee tonight. The defensive coordinator at Tennessee. He dialed up blitzes tonight, 5 and 6 guys at a time on passing downs, and they rattled the heck out of Bryce Young. All credit to Bryce Young for stepping away. And there was a couple of times where he left
Tim
jocks
Banks,
on the floor.
Dennis. Tim Banks,
and
you were
got
thinking
passes
of.
away. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. I lost my mind.
A lot of names. A lot of names today.
Tim Banks had a great – it was really the only way they could win defensively. It was just to bring pressure because that back 4, 5, or 6 wasn't going to win the game for you. He had a great night. But they're going to have to – both these teams are going to have to win games like this.
And to point back to that schedule, Hakeem, we just threw it up there on the screen a second ago. I think a lot of folks are going to assume, okay, well, Bama will take care of business in the West and they'll punch their ticket to Atlanta. And that may be true. But I'm telling you right now, they got to go to Starkville, Mississippi off of no rest. Or they got Mississippi State coming up. And I want to remind you what Dennis just said. that Bama pass rush was sort of a non-factor today. And the assumption, I can tell you talking to some scouting types, is, oh, Mississippi State matches up poorly with Bama because the tackles can't handle the pass rush. Well, if you get the ball out fast enough, as we saw today, sometimes it doesn't really matter. So I'm not just going to chalk that one up in the dub column for Alabama either. You mentioned they got Ole Miss. We don't know what LSU is going to be by the time they go down there. There are still several, at the very least, physical challenges for Alabama on that schedule.
Well, I appreciate both of you because you're always in the middle of chaos and you always deliver. So if you got them, smoke them if you got them. Go and get yourself a victory cigar on this night there in Knoxville. Dennis and Josh, post game here on CBS Sports HQ. Men, thanks. And hey, for more awesome content, check out the Late Kick with Josh Pate. I mean, it's quite the community. I mean, it's awesome. Like, if you're a fan of college football, this is what you want. Josh delivering college football the way you want it. Behind the scenes whispers and intel thanks to a network of team insiders, breakdowns, rapid reaction. Join Josh 3 times a week on YouTube, 8 Eastern. You can also listen to the podcast version as well, The Late Kick with Josh Pate.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.